Welcome to StreetSmart Live. I'm Gordon Holmes, the founder and today's host. Got an exciting episode to preview, but first I want you to look at the disclosures on the screen. All right, today we have Martin Cronin of Patriot to give us an update, which I'm certainly looking forward to. So Martin, welcome aboard.
Thanks very much. Good to be on, Gordon. So what I thought I might do, if that's okay, is take you through a short presentation, a few slides, just for people who may be unfamiliar with who Patriot are, what we do, where we're at, and then I'm very pleased to be able to have a bit of a Q&A discussion with Andrew Uerkwitz, the equity sell-side research analyst from Oppenheimer, covering the technology space, including public safety. So a little bit of an intro to the company, and then we'll get into some Q&A to get inside exactly where we're at and where we're going, and help people to understand the Patriot story.
Great.
So if I may, I'll just pull up a few slides here. I'll try not to take too long in running through this. Many of your viewers, of course, may be entirely familiar with who we are, but this could be the first time for some people. So Patriot in the business of public safety through threat detection. We're a 4-year-old company set up to commercialize innovative sensor technologies coupled with artificial intelligence for the detection of threats, whether concealed guns, knives, bombs, and more recently biological threats. Why this is different to the conventional approach to public safety of metal detector arches and security guards with wands is we've seen attacks across every sector of the economy. The type of attacks that were once confined to war zones and unstable parts of the world have now become, sadly, all too commonplace in Western society, in places of entertainment, transportation, hospitality, for sadly schools, universities as well. So a new approach to public safety is required to deal with the current threat that we face. So the principles on which we operate are that you can't sacrifice civil liberties and privacy in an effort to have ever better security. That there's a line, there's a balance to be struck, a social contract, and so we want to stay on that right side of the line when it comes to privacy, civil liberties. Secondly, people don't want to be stopped and searched everywhere they go, and so our focus is on a touchless, unobtrusive, covert, if you wish, experience. Thirdly, we use artificial intelligence, but we don't hand over as it were, the keys to the kingdom to machine intelligence. The AI is there to allow humans to make better decisions, so it's still human in the loop. And then the fourth principle is that we are in the business of extending perimeters, detecting threats sooner, so that you can get on top of a threat before it becomes an attack. And so the approach that we take is we have a platform. We began life with a single hardware technology. We quickly realized that we needed a number of different technologies to achieve the vision we had set for ourselves. And so what we have is now what we call a multi-sensor threat detection platform, layered sensor technologies, machine learning to process the data coming off the sensors. The idea is that this should be low cost so that it can be widely deployed, and as I say, to detect threats sooner. So in this little image here, you'll see the cameras are enabled to recognize weapons, fights, disturbances. If you have our thermal solution integrated, you can detect high body temperature, which could be indicative of a fever. As people pass through the building, they'll pass through the multi-sensor gateway, which will detect the presence of concealed weapons. And then as they're moving throughout the building, again, you're looking for fights, disturbances, anomalous behaviors. So as I say, we have a stream of different technologies to apply different sensors, all feeding into the PAT scan brain, which is the neural network which processes all that complex data and puts out in real time an alert, which can be networked to put it where your security people are, so that you don't have to have every entrance to a building manned by security personnel checking people. You let the sensors do that and put the information where it needs to be. We work with some major partners, both on technology development, and go-to-market approaches. And now that we are we have full commercial product rolling out. We're working with some big brand name clients, primarily in the US. And these are across different parts of the economy, because, as I say, this is not the conventional approach to security. It's about deploying smart security wherever people gather and are at risk of acts of violence. We've had quite a high profile for this because this fundamentally different approach has resonated with people who are struggling with how to enhance public safety without turning everywhere into a fortress. And then more recently, obviously, businesses are struggling with, how do they safely reopen in the face of the pandemic. And so we have used some of our tools in AI to create solutions that can help businesses safely reopen against the backdrop of public health crisis. So that is the formal presentation. And so I think perhaps now it would be appropriate to get into some Q&A and invite Andrew to join in.
Hey, thanks, Martin, for inviting me, and thanks, Gordon, for having us. Martin, you and I have known each other for a long time, and I've known, we study public safety, and clearly interest in public safety has only been increasing, definitely in 2020. Could you talk about the frictionless, the effort to make public safety frictionless? Is that the driving demand from potential customers, is trying to get rid of all the major hardware that people are walking through? Does that give the sense of, can you talk about the safety aspect there, and why frictionless is so important?
Sure. Well, I think, I talked a few moments ago about this balance between civil liberties and, the free, uninterrupted movement of people, and the need to make them safer when they're entering both public and private facilities. And so in trying to find that sweet spot, that balance between them, people need to feel, welcomed coming into a facility. They don't want to be stopped and searched and have to, open up their bags and empty out their pockets. At the same time, organizations have to work out how they can keep people safer. So if you can achieve, as we have done, a means of the seamless flow of people so that you can scan them without stop and search, security gets what it needs out of it, which is identifying threats ahead of time, and the public get what they need out of it, which is to be able to go about their business unimpeded. And I think, so you can, in a sense, you can call it a mobility solution. It's about the free movement of people in public spaces. And I think the COVID pandemic has brought this into even sharper focus, because there are statistics out of the UK showing that security guards are one of the groups of workers with the highest infection rates, because they are coming into contact with everybody entering a facility. So again, if you can make it touchless, without that physical point of contact to identify, for example, elevated body temperature as much as identifying weapons, you're also creating a safer environment from a public health perspective.
Yeah, I want to come back to COVID in a second, because I think it's kind of important to probably drive long-term demand. But when you look at the potential, market opportunity, obviously anything that has a public space probably is on the list. But how do you kind of differentiate, or how do you think about attacking that market? Is there a certain segment that sees this as more in demand than others? I know you've had stadiums, but I'm thinking stadiums, airports, casinos, parks. How do you think about the customer fragmentation?
Well, I mean, the first thing to note is, obviously we're in, different territory right now with the pandemic. Many of the facilities that we have been talking to prior to the outbreak are in a state of lockdown. Some have gone out of business, others are waiting to work out how they can safely reopen. And so, right now we're in the business of identifying those that are looking at solutions for operating safely or getting open again. And so it somewhat changes our focus. But if we step aside from the these extraordinarily difficult times that we're in, I think there are opportunities for the technology across very different types of environments. From a single entrance in an elementary school that wants to keep weapons out and doesn't have, complex security systems, highly trained security, professionals on site. They just need some means of identifying a weapon coming through that front door, on a student or a visitor, right through to a stadium with its own security team, with complex camera systems, video management systems, access controls, metal detectors, who are looking for a means of moving people more quickly into the facility, where they can be enjoying the facility and spending money. And so what they are looking for is this seamless, touchless mobility solution to move people in quickly and safely by identifying threats ahead of time. So really, the application for technology does span a very broad part of the economy. So from very simple installations right through to complex environments and everything in between.
And on that point, I mean, when we think about security, we always think about the metal detectors and video cameras, but really your technology is more of a software layer that sits on top of that, gathers that data, uses kind of machine learning to make decisions here, and then obviously have the human element to probably provide a double check. But has that allowed you guys to be more nimble? Does that open up more opportunities? Because now all of a sudden, if you care about temperature checks or COVID or biological issues, it's just a matter of building a software protocol to add to it. Or how flexible is your system, or how flexible can the system be for your potential customers?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, you're right. For us, the hardware is just a means to an end. The hardware is there to generate data that can be interpreted by the brain of the system. And so, in the same way as a human uses multiple senses, our PASCAN brain uses multiple sensor technologies. But the sensors are there to generate data, and the cleverness, the secret sauce lies, in software. Having said that, I mean, our engineers would curse me if I suggested it was a trivial thing to create new modules for new types of detection. Sure. But you're right. In software, we can be more nimble. The hardware is a long road. We have had to design and build, test, calibrate, and certify hardware. That certainly is non-trivial. It's a long, hard road. In software, we can be more nimble, which allows us, as we deploy with clients, to say, well, look, what is of interest to you in your environment? What concerns you? And so, for example, some clients say, well, actually, we want to know the number of people going into a particular, part of the facility. Great. Okay, well, we can do that. So, working with clients, there are things we can do in software, much more quickly than we can, new iterations of hardware. So you're right. It does allow us to be more nimble.
And then again, thinking of kind of a post-COVID world, has the customers demand? I mean, thinking threat detection, thinking seamless and frictionless entries and safety in the public sphere. Has those conversations with customers shifted to worry about COVID, or are customers thinking that's more of just a temporary headwind right now?
The way people look at it does run the whole gamut, from those who say, well, it'll be over soon and business will just get back to normal, and others who see it as a fundamental change in the whole nature of business going forward. I mean, from my own perspective, I think this will not be the last pandemic we face. There may well be much worse pathogens that will hit us than COVID-19. But we have been really challenged by COVID. As I mentioned, many businesses have been are on hold. They're not open, or they're open with greatly reduced numbers, and budget just gone. We've got systems that we can't install because we can't get into people's facilities. So they've ordered and paid for systems, and but we can't get in there to install, and that brings challenges with recognizing revenue. But in the main, what business is saying to us is the old problems that we have always had to deal with will still be with us as we emerge from COVID. But COVID is just another thing that we have to think of because we can't just be going into shutdown every time we have an outbreak. So we need better ways of doing things. And so the notion of touchless, frictionless experience to scan for threats, whether they're physical or biological, is very much on people's minds. It's just for many of them, they have uncertainty about when they can return to normal business, and that's certainly been a challenge for us and other businesses. So in short, I think it is leading to fundamental change, but fundamental changes which ultimately really feed into what we can provide as a solution.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's clearly probably going to be near-term challenges. I mean, all public spaces, right? It's all about distancing, and most public spaces are closed. But I would think that kind of coming out of or looking at a post-COVID world, whether it's an amusement park or any sort of large gathering, they're going to want solutions that will allow them to stay open in the future. On that kind of point, you have had some installations previously to COVID. You are a young company. What's been the early customer feedback that have installed your solution? Any quantitative things you could point to on the success of some of those early customers?
Yeah, well, I mean, the best, testimonial really is one deployment, leading to another. And so we have this, I suppose you could call it like an ink spot. Well, it's not so much our approach; it's manifestation of how this is working. That in Cincinnati, for example, we deployed at the Red Stadium, which then led to deployment into a school district, which then led to deployment into the municipality, and is now leading in deployments in other areas. And so that really is the best measure of whether these things are these solutions are providing what people need. The fact that others are then saying, yeah, great, we want some of this. So yeah, it's still early days, and as I say, we've got people ordering systems but telling us, but you can't install yet because we're closed, or you can't travel, etc. So really, we'll see this open up as the economy opens up. But we to your question about whether this is changing people's approach, we're engaged in very strategic discussions now with big organizations who are saying, okay, look, we need to completely redesign how we do security, because we can't go back into a total loss of business. So we need to really integrate intelligent security into our whole operation to be able to identify both physical and biological threats. And so the deployments we have are leading to some very interesting, very strategic discussions. And obviously people have got a great thirst for news right now, as I do. And I think you'll start to see some real manifestations of that coming through, and people will get quite excited, I think, about how this does change the nature of public safety.
Yeah, it's I mean, a lot of our focus in public safety has been around this idea of increasing trust in public institutions, while also kind of lowering that friction that we see between between organizations and consumers. One thing that sits in between, or that the big elephant in the room there is obviously privacy concerns. Could you talk a little bit about how Patriot One deals with the privacy concerns that folks may have about always being watched and
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I come out of a government background, and obviously, very familiar with the challenge of the government has in maintaining social contract. You can't, in Western democracies, you simply can't become a mass surveillance society. People are not going to accept it. People, no matter the fact that we've had sort of horrific terrorist attacks, that we've had awful school shootings, people don't want to change the fundamental nature of society. They still expect to have privacy as they move around. And so we are very cognizant of this, and so that we have a number of sort of red lines, that constrain how we operate. We're not capturing any personal data, storing, transmitting any personal data. We're not capturing images of people unless a threat has been identified. We don't develop facial recognition technology. We can integrate with it where it's appropriate and a client needs it, and we've done that sort of integration. But everything that we do is it's around data. It's identifying the inanimate objects that may be a threat, or detecting the presence of elevated body temperature, which could be indicative of viral contagion. So we're not in the business of capturing personal information and transmitting that anywhere. I've had discussions in DC around this whole notion of civil liberties. I've sat down with the ACLU. We've been in touch with the Privacy Commission here in Canada. We are very keen to ensure that we stay on the right side of the line when it comes to protecting people's civil liberties and privacy.
Got it. No, it's super helpful. And then I guess I'll wrap up on this question. Is that when, obviously COVID's been fairly challenging, but when you kind of look out, how's the conversations changed that you've had with potential customers looking at a post-COVID world and the flexibility of the platform here, of what you guys could ultimately provide as far as public safety goes?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, there are a range of opinions. There are those who are saying, okay, well, COVID will be gone soon and we'll go back to normal. And we're interested in identifying guns, knives, and bombs, and that's fine. There are other organizations who believe that COVID will be with us for a long time, that we'll be constraining outbreaks of it, and or there will be other pathogens, and so therefore are fundamentally changing the nature of their business. So we can engage, with all parts of that conversation. If people simply want to get back to business and want to keep weapons out, great. But what we say to them is, look, this isn't an either or. You can deploy a platform which can do all of these things. When you're in a state of concern about a viral threat, well, use the modules like elevated body temperature detection, mask detection, social distancing, all the other things that we can do or are working on. And when you're not worried about a viral threat and your concern is weapons, well, it's the same platform. It's exactly the same setup. So really wherever they sit in that debate about how far we might return to normal, it's still a conversation that we as Patriot One can have with them.
Yeah, sure. And I just hope there's a day I can go to the Yankees game without standing in a 2-hour line to get in.
Yeah. Well, and actually that raises an interesting question, because some people look at what we can provide purely from a security perspective, preventing an attack. Others, large organizations, see it as an efficiency measure, as a mobility solution to move people more quickly through space so that they can engage inside a facility and be spending money at concession stands, etc. So for the large sophisticated organization, we are as much about the efficiency of movement, the mobility solution, as we are around the pure detection of threats. And so that does, to your earlier question about the nimbleness of being able to work in software, that does allow us to open up a broader discussion around what else is of interest to you. What do you need to know about what happens inside your facility, so that we can help you to be ever more efficient and ultimately to make more money.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Martin, again, thanks for having me. Gordon, thanks for having Martin and I join the conversation. I'll turn it back over to you. Great.
Thanks very much, Andrew.
Great. Well, again, thanks to both of you. I think this has been very valuable, and I think investors will, are currently watching it, but we're going to post this up on our YouTube channel and get more people to get an update. So appreciate both of you taking time today.
Thanks very much, Gordon.
Thank you, Gordon.
Pleasure to be on. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.